families that serve along with them. And Father, we just pray right now that you'll give us wisdom, guidance, and direction as we go about the business today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mm-hmm. At this time, I would like to call on Michael Ramirez, who is our special guest from the Ark of the Bay, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Michael.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you,
Oh, look here.
Commissioner Barnes will not be able to attend today's meeting because of illness in his family, and so if I could have a motion that he be excused from the meeting with a second, please.
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Russell that he be excused and a second by Commissioner Friend. Any discussion from the board or questions? Any discussion from the public? Thank you. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so is approved for Commissioner Barnes to be excused from the meeting, and please keep his family in your prayers. Moving on to item number 3, the Mayor Commission discussion and possible action on the fuel depot. We have some language to discuss, and so I'd like to start out by calling on our city manager to read the resolution, which is resolution number 2017-07689, and once he reads the resolution, then a motion to accept and a second, and then we'll open that for discussion. We have our city attorney who can give us a report of his comments and actions, and then we also have members of the Development Corporation Blue Water and Marina Island here to give explanation and comments before we move forward. So are you ready, Mr. White?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Resolution number 2017-07-689, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending the purchase agreement with Marina Island, LLC, for the sale of the Lynn Haven Fuel Depot in Resolution 2017-07-688, revising the windfall agreement language in the purchase agreement and development agreement, adding additional properties to the development agreement, approving the revised purchase and sale agreement with Marina Island, approving the revised form of the development agreement with Marina Island, authorizing the mayor to execute the conveyance agreement, the revised purchase and sale agreement, the easement agreement, and other closing documents, and providing an effective date.
It's discussed.
Okay, at this time, if we could have a motion for discussion of this resolution and a second from the commission.
Make motion.
And is there a second? This is not for passage or action, it's just for discussion. So apparently there is no second, so if I could have the advice of the city attorney, I would say then the resolution fails.
Fails for lack of a second. Yes, ma'am. Now that's on the discussion part. If someone wants to make a motion to approve the resolution, and then we can have discussion after that. But that,
yeah, I thought that's what we just did.
That doesn't seem too promising either.
That's what I asked for, was for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It was just a motion for discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then I'll second it.
The second would give the opportunity for discussion, but we will eventually vote on the resolution. Is that not correct?
Well, I mean, the motion, I guess there was just the motion from Commissioner Tender. So did you intend the motion just to be for discussion only, or to actually approve the motion, approve the resolution?
For discussion.
Okay. So
that was my understanding.
Discussion only.
Second for discussion only.
Okay, there's been a motion for discussion only of resolution number 2017-07-689 by Commissioner Tender. This motion has been seconded by Commissioner Friend. So at this time, we can open this for discussion with questions first from the board. If there's anyone you'd like to hear from, the attorney, the developers, et cetera, and then at one point in the meeting there will be an opportunity for discussion and questions from the public as well. So shall we proceed? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Obviously, I want to know what the verbiage change was.
Sure, yeah, and I'll just give you all a quick background. I think everyone's up to speed on it, but just so there, for clarity, The contract, the resolution, the previous resolution that we voted on last Tuesday included a purchase agreement with a development agreement attached and a conveyance agreement with the Air Force. That was approved. There was some discussion about non-material and material changes that the mayor and the city manager had authority to make non-material changes in those agreements. As part of that discussion, I mentioned that there was some unsettledness with the windfall language in the purchase agreement, which is language that was put in there basically to kind of an anti-flipping provision, for lack of a better word. And to include that as a non-material change, that failed. And so, there is an approval to sign the agreement as drafted and presented to you all last week, the purchase agreement. The Air Force agreement, I think, has already been executed. And so this week, we've been working with the developer to try to get the changes on the windfall agreement language down. So the other change, which is more not as material, is they wanted to include some of the parcels that they own in the development agreement. And the development agreement is not final anyway, and so we can adjust that later, but I went ahead and made those changes in the development agreement. This is primarily about the windfall language. And the windfall language is in both the purchase agreement and the development agreement. And what it says right now, basically, is that if the developer sells an unimproved parcel, that every time they sell an unimproved parcel, so they have not done any, the theory is they haven't done any work on it, they just flipped it, basically. Every time they sell an unimproved parcel, that is measured against the expenses that they've put into the property. So the acquisition expenses, the soft costs that they've got in acquiring the property, and then any development expenses if they run water and sewer, whatever development expenses they've put in the property, if they build their own development, and all those expenses will all count, and they offset. And so if the price of the parcel that they're selling exceeds the total cost that they have into the parcel, that's considered a, quote, profit. And then the city would split that with them over the next 3 years, 50, 40, and 30. So that's how it was originally drafted, and that's what it says now, and was approved by the commission. In discussions with the developer, and as we talked about last week, we have a new primary partner in this development. So this language was negotiated last year and was acceptable to everybody before this primary partner came on board. And so the new primary partner is on board, and he has raised some issues about this because he has experience as a master developer, and he just is concerned that this could detract from the development, make the development less attractive, and make it harder for him to get people to come on board. And I'm sure they can probably explain more of that better. But after the meeting last week, I met with Chris Hines from Blue Water and said, listen, I really need to know what their concerns are so we can make some adjustments and bring this back to the commission for explanation. And so the language that, after discussion with him, is really in the change, the one sheet change that I passed out that shows the changes to the commission. It's all in this, most of it's all in the unimproved parcel section. And so there are two big changes that I made after that. One is that they expressed some concern that they often are just a holding company. So the Marina Island is the company that's bound by this agreement, and they're just a holding company often. And so they may drop down a single purpose entity to own some other property and then buy that property and then develop there. And they were concerned that this agreement would catch something like that. And so we added language that said that if the party that's purchasing the parcel is related to Marina Island in any way, shape, or form, then it's not going to count as an unimproved parcel. So they ought to be able to transfer another piece of property to another related development that they own, build on it, and they won't get hit by that. And related, it means that it's a company relation, so there's a subsidiary, some kind of relationship, or if any of the principals are related in any way. So any of the owners of Marina Island also own a stake in the new company, or if it's a joint venture. So if they have some kind of contractual joint venture with the new company, then that would be excluded. So that's the first big change. The second big change was they were concerned that for an example, they said, let's say we sell, the city's desire is to see the property developed. And so they may sell a unimproved parcel to a completely unrelated company that would count for this formula. However, that party may immediately start building on the property, put a hotel up or an apartment complex or something like that, which would mean it wasn't really a true flip. They actually are just doing their jobs as the master developer. And so we included language that any parcel that is unimproved that is sold, and within this language is 6 months, there's development activity on the parcel, then it would be excluded for subsequent sales. And so this is all cumulative. And I know this is, it's getting a little complex, but basically, if they sell parcel A and then next year they sell parcel B, you're going to add the costs of A and B together, and then C. And so they can't just keep dividing up the parcels and get that, quote, windfall. It's to try to avoid, gaming this whole thing, which we do not suspect that at all, but you just never know. And so that's why so it's all cumulative. But in this situation I just explained, if A sells to a hotel person and then B sells to a apartment complex, and they both start developing on this, when they go to sell C, an undeveloped parcel, both A and B aren't going to count. It's just going to be the cost of C that counts. So those are the two big changes. Basically, the affiliated company change, and the two is the future development change, I'll call it. Those are the big changes. Now, I will say that we have had additional discussions with them, or as early as, as late as, an hour ago, about massaging that a little bit, and they've suggested some other changes. If you guys are interested in hearing those, I'd be happy to explain them to you, but this is what's before you right now, so.
Thank you.
And I know that's probably very confusing, so I'm more than happy to try to explain whatever questions you guys have.
I thought you did a good job. It was very clear, in my opinion. And anybody else on the commission have a question for the attorney? And then I wanted to ask if the developers would like to contribute to the discussion as well.
There's no definition as far as relationships are concerned. So if the company they sell it to owns 1%, then it's considered a relationship and they can flip it and keep going.
Yeah, the definition right now is wholly unrelated. So if there's a 1% tie, that would be considered a related company. It wouldn't. There are, when you try to define something like this, it's very difficult to define a flip, and there's always ways to game the system. And so we're trying to find some place that encourages the development but stops the gaming.
When was this contract originally signed? What was the date? Do you know?
Well, this contract has not been.
No, I mean the original deal that was set up.
The original, there's a long history in the resolution, but basically in 2008, the Air Force put this out for bid, and Blue Water and Marina were not the winning bidders, but the winning bidder backed out about a couple years later, and so we have been actively working with Blue Water Marina Island to try to, just transfer this property probably for about 2 years now. I think probably 2015 is when it started getting serious. Okay. And we had a contract with them that was approved by the commission last year, but their third party, their partner backed out at the last minute, so they got a new partner. Is what's happened. So it's been a couple years that this has been going on.
Other questions for the attorney from the board?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just point out something. Under the unimproved parcel, we don't really define we try to define what the substantial development is. But if I understand it right, you come down and it says a parcel, and you got site construction, underground utilities, roadway additions, improvements, parking lots, building improvements, and so on and so forth. All sounds really good, but I think when we do that, it becomes a substantial development. My concern is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you could go in, you could divide out a piece of it, you could do site construction. We don't have a definition for site construction. If there is one, I'm willing to hear it. Or you could just put down a parking lot. Once you do that, it's no longer unimproved parcel, it's a substantial development, and then it can be sold.
That's correct.
And their windfall goes away.
That's correct. Yeah, if the developer develops a parcel, it's not going to be included. So if they go off and do their own apartment complex and then sell that to somebody else, it's not going to be included. If they start development and then assign that somewhere else, if they put infrastructure on the parcel and then sell it to somebody else, water, sewer, roads, then it wouldn't be considered an unimproved parcel.
Right, but the site construction in a parking lot is pretty vague for turning it from, you know, undeveloped to substantially
Right,
developed. And ultimately, the whole point of the windfall is to protect the residents of Lynn Haven, bottom line. And if we change the language for it to be this flexible, in my opinion, it does away with the windfall, which we've not done our due diligence on protecting that. This property, this development, in my opinion, is very, very important to Lynn Haven. It could be our last hurrah as far as a development. For known property that Lynn Haven has in its city limits today, this is the largest piece we've got left. It's too important to make sudden changes at the end of it. We've worked really hard to get to where we are. I look back over some of the other agreement. I'm almost ready to get back to the table on several other items. So there's no way I can support a last-minute change to the windfall when ultimately I want to protect the residents of Lynn Haven. I don't think, for instance, it's been 2 years. The property is no longer worth $2.4 million. It's got to be worth more than that. Has to be. Property values have increased. That property out there is no different.
I would just add one comment that when you say you're willing to go back and start negotiating other parts, just because this commission would be willing to negotiate other parts does not mean the Air Force would be.
Yes, ma'am. I recognize that. And yes, ma'am. I recognize that. And regardless of where the resolution goes today, I would be willing to, once we finish with this particular motion on the table, I'd be willing to make a motion today that says that we ask the city manager to do a letter to Tyndall stating that we plan on closing at the defined closing date, which I believe is no later than August the 8th. Because I don't disagree with you, Mayor, at all. They have to be frustrated at this point. I've been on several calls. I know you have as well. The last thing that we want, again, because I believe this development is too important to Lynn Haven, we don't want it to go back to GSA. I recognize that. But at the same time, I think we have to safeguard this windfall.
So are you suggesting that the city would purchase the property on its own? Without the developer?
The city's purchasing the property regardless. We just wouldn't make the transfer if we can't come to an agreement. If they've already made the statement, I'm sure we'll hear from them later, but they've already made the statement that it's going to lessen their opportunities to entice more investors to develop, then my point is, if they walk away from the deal, which is set to close, then we should be ready to step in and, yes, take control, purchase the property, and start looking for a new developer.
And I would support that.
Well, I would urge you both to consider the fact, I mean, since we have to talk in the open and I can't talk to you any other way, I would urge you both, you know, as much as I would like to see a closing on the property, Lynn Haven is really not in the real estate business.
Totally agree.
Pardon me?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry,
and it's
ma'am.
not our, if I could just finish my sentence, and I would urge you to really consider, you know, that we try as hard as we can. I'm not saying that we have to agree to what's written here. I'm just saying if we can keep this discussion going and get the developers involved, and let's have a very open discussion here and see where we're going, because Lynn Haven cannot afford, first of all, to go into our reserves and buy that property when you say we're looking out for the best interest of Lynn Haven. The city is here to provide services, to do the best for our citizens, to protect their investments, and you know, there's nothing, this has been in flux for 10 years, and there's nothing saying now that if the city were to purchase this on our own, that we could find a buyer. Unless maybe there, you know, I don't know if you know a buyer, but I mean, I don't want the city to be left holding the bag for a piece of property that we can't sell. And to me, that's protecting the residents as well. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Yes, ma'am, and I completely concur. If you look on the record, 2 years ago when we first started up this process, that was my exact statement. I do not believe a municipality or a government entity should be in the development business.
So why would you change now, I guess?
Because I think the property's too important to Lynn Haven. I do believe that over the course of 2 years, the value of the property has increased, and I also think that there's other opportunities out there that we could discuss. I think there's got to be, I would like to think, I don't know for sure, but I'd like to think there's other developers standing by. I'm committed to this developer. I have been from day one, but we've had so many changes, and this last one really gets me.
I respect that.
But at the end of the day, I would like to believe that a lot has changed in 2 years, and I believe we could find a developer, and so that's why I think the only reason I'm changing from the city owning the property is so that we secure it from going to GSA. I think Lynn Haven's healthy enough to do that on the short term, and I think that is important, because if we let it go to GSA, we may never get it back. I mean, who knows how long it would take to get back, right?
That is a fact.
But that being said, you know, if the developer walks away because we're trying to protect the windfall or whatever the items may be, we have to, I'd like to see us entertain securing the property. I'm not saying we have to do anything, but that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else on the board have comments or questions?
I think Rodney said it pretty well. I mean, it's taxable property, or it's non-taxable property now, and it needs to be taxable property for the city of Lynn Haven. And we need to do whatever we can to secure it so that we can start collecting ad valorem tax off of it. And I agree completely with Rodney that if we can't make this deal work, then I think the city needs to look at purchasing the property.
Okay. At this point, what I'd like to do, we've been discussing and having some comments about what we think about the changes in the windfall. We've talked about, it's been brought up that the city would be standing in the wings to secure the acquisition of this property. So I'd like to open this particular part of the discussion to the public. Is there anyone who would like to comment, including the developers, as we go along? Yes, Mr. Walker? Or ask questions. If you have questions that you would like to ask of the developer or the attorney, then we can, and if you do have questions for the attorney or the developers, if you would ask those directly to me, and then we'll have them to come and ask the questions to you. Okay, thank you so much.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. It's been a long time. We've been at this for a long time. First of all, you got to understand this. Nobody wants that property.
Could you speak up just a little, Mr. Walker?
Nobody wants that property. When it was offered up, first of all, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, nobody wanted it. It was contaminated. It still reads that in the contract. However, I'm not here for that. This has been tried before. Your 950 acres is an exact example of what you have right now. That was started off, the people of this town were told, sold a deal, and it never came true. That's 950 acres up there, which is still there. Has around maybe 20 houses on it now. It's been parceled off, bit by bit. Does not resemble anything what it was as a TND. In fact, your former city manager told me TND is worthless because it isn't what it is anymore. I'm wondering why this piece of property here that you're talking about is not going to be converted into TND. Anyway, a lot of things have been said by city managers, people, and given to the citizens of this town. The bottom line is this. Commissioner Friend is correct. Protect the citizens of this town. There's a lot of things in this contract that do not read right. Everything's been bent over backwards for the developer here. Same as the 950 acres. And who's going to pay for this? The taxpayers. One example of this, which you haven't seen, is the $8.5 million road that you have to build out of there. That's going to be borne by the taxpayer. My concern was this. In that original contract many years ago, there was a portion in it that dealt with the Lynn Haven Heritage Society. They were supposed to be contacted and dealt with over the old library. The contract was quite explicit. The departing city manager, when he left, I asked him, is that part of that contract still there? He says, yes. And do yourself a favor, Mr. Walker. Keep them to it. Well, it's missing. And I'm concerned. We were promised something. We're not going to get it. You were promised something in this contract. You're not going to get it. Just take a look at the 950 acres. My concern is strongly over that library, and I'm very adamant as why that was taken out. That hurt. So I have to agree with Mr. Friend here, or Commissioner Friend, that I think you better go back and take a look at this. This is going to be too hard if it goes back to GSA. Nobody
Mr.
wants
Walker,
it.
if you can bring it to a, I'm not going to cut you off, but if you can.
It won't be too bad if it goes back to GSA. It should have gone back to GSA because they missed out on the contract twice. What a good idea would be in here is you give it back to GSA, and GSA give it to the people that are going to do the Restore Act and get your $17 million from them. They buy that fuel depot, turn it into a park, have $10 million to support it for 10 years, and then you take the 90 acres that they were going to buy and put that on the tax rolls. That's prime waterfront property. That idea is a better idea than what you have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Go ahead.
James Finch, 14 East 2nd Street. And all the talking here was, what the lawyer was talking, what all that equates to is the city will receive less money if y'all do this deal. A lot less money. And this has been going on for several years, and you've got a developer that has a good idea and no money. He's had several investors and they've walked on him. The guy's probably putting a squeeze on him this week, or lawyers talking to him an hour ago. The city's got several thousand, probably over $100,000 in lawyer bills in this deal here. These people need to put up their money, close the deal, or go away. All this lawyer stuff needs to stop. It shouldn't ever happen. That the city has over $100,000 or whatever in this deal, talking to two guys that had a good idea and wanted to put everybody in on it. But it's been 5, 6, 7 years and they've not been able to raise the money. I think the escrow date, whatever the date is, if they got the money, they got the deal. The talking should be over. If not, then the city needs to decide what they want to do in between now and the day that the escrow money's put up and closing date. That's what the time y'all have got to put something together. But talking to them is going backwards. That's what I think.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment to make today? Questions?
Thank you for the opportunity. Chris Hine, Blue Water Development. The money is in the bank, ready to close. And one of the things, as a master developer, having developed all over the Southeast, that we are focused on is trying to get as much vertical development into this project as we can, particularly in the current market environment, which we think is improving. The comments, I can understand the frustration. We've been as frustrated with everyone as anyone about how long it's taken to get here. And I might remind the Commission that we effectively are dealing with 3 different governments. You know, FSU really is tantamount to a government, and a lot of the state laws apply in that case. But we're excited about going forward after years of working on this. And all I can say is that I'm the only one that has put his money where his mouth is, because I've already bought the land next door to it, to this fuel depot. And so this is not just a road that we decided to go down through because we're opportunists. We are professional in our perspective of what this can mean for the city of Lynn Haven, and we're very much interested in making it the best project we can. I can certifiably tell you that our joint venture partner is very interested in going vertical on a lot of this product. But we also are very concerned that in order to speed up development, it makes sense for us to bring in the expertise of, for example, somebody that would build a hotel or somebody that would build a multifamily. And so I'll kind of put the question back to you, is looks like you're wanting to vote and keep the DA the way it was, the windfall agreement. I ask that you not do that. I think that the requests that we've made and the language changes that we've been working with the city attorney on over the past 2 weeks are viable and tenable because they help to clear up some of the gray areas. And it's not good for either of the parties to have gray areas. It's important for stuff to be defined. In that interest, our changes have been made towards the goal of being to allow us to be able to bring in lots of other participating developers and builders that want to put up product in Lynn Haven on this property. Are there any questions?
Questions for the developer at this point that you would have about any of the windfall changes? Any questions about what his plans are? Just any questions at all from the board?
I probably have so many, but I don't even know how to the whole thing. I mean, when I listen to the conversation, I love that property out there. I thought it was a go. I thought we were ready to sign and be done with it. I can appreciate the frustration of a couple of the commissioners here. Mm-hmm. And you're speaking for someone else, is that correct?
Well, I'm speaking for, Blue Water will be one of the partners in Marina Island.
But the person who, or the entity that has just stepped in that wants to make all these changes, that's not you, correct?
That's correct.
And where are they at?
They are on holiday today, not vacation. Our partner is an individual of the Jewish faith, and today is a memorialized day of mourning for them. And so they basically take themselves out of any business affiliations or dealings on this day. And that's one of the reasons he's not here. Mm. He's otherwise been involved with the city attorney.
Has he put any money into it yet, physically?
Yes.
That's all I have.
And I have one question that I would like to ask. Is there any reason why the escrow money would not be in the account on the day we agreed? It's going to be there as we agreed. The money in escrow would be in that account on the day as promised. Just for the benefit of all the commission, I think that's a big concern.
Yeah. Like I say, the money's in the bank right now, and we're wanting to move forward with closing, and thus far we've spent a substantial amount of money. It isn't just us throwing ideas against the wall. We've probably got close to $500,000 in this project so far in costs. And so, you know, it's on our side of the table that we've spent money for traffic studies, money for engineers, money for riparian rights agreements, which were extremely expensive, money for riparian rights surveys, money for all of the surveys, including FSUs. Plus, we're paying all the closing costs, all the title, all the survey, and we will be bearing the burden of also working with the Air Force to continue environmental cleanup on the site.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
I'm just trying to get this clear in my mind. So basically, you're ready to close on the 3rd with the $100,000 being put in escrow?
The entire amount of the money for the entire purchase goes into escrow this Thursday. 2 days.
For the entire purchase?
For the entire purchase. And the closing as of this morning's conference call looks like it's getting changed from the 7th to the 9th or 10th due to the Air Force trying to get a signature on an environmental escrow agreement from the Secretary of the Air Force.
But that money, are we saying that if that money goes into escrow?
It goes into escrow, it's non-refundable.
It's non-refundable.
And what we're looking at doing is we want to identify what substantial development activity means, because as a normal habit and practice for master developers, it's our job to not only plan the entire project, but then begin bringing in the active developers that have expertise in, say, a hotel. It'd be stupid for us to go reinvent the wheel and become a, go to school and become a hotel developer when we can bring those people that are already experts in it to the table. Now, there's other components that we're really good at. So as we stand here today, and we've shared it with the mayor as well as the prior city manager, we've got 2 projects in the wings ready to go. One is a 64-unit condo deal. Another one is a 200-unit senior multifamily housing project. And we have some others right behind it. And so we're looking at wanting to put a lot of verticality in this project quickly. And in any event, we're trying to make sure that we don't get caught into a dilemma with the city where if we should be giving, I should be asking for incentives to help me light my rocket to go put as much stuff in here as I can in 1 year. But we respect the fact that we think the windfall language is legitimate for discouraging us from just doing a land flip. And I don't disagree with Robert on this, that describing windfall can be a difficult thing. But we also have to be able to separate it from our normal business of going out and spending money on planning, permitting, land clearing, getting infrastructure put in, bringing in other buyers, developers, and then selling those parcels so that those people can get active and busy.
And I guess this question is of the commission. Won't the city of Lynn Haven still have control over what goes on that property?
It will be within the city limits of Lynn Haven, and so it will be subject to the ordinances.
So it's not like they can buy all this property and put up topless bars everywhere and stuff like that, right? I mean,
I think you're right.
What goes on there.
We've put that in the development agreement. In fact, that was one of the items we said we didn't want.
That's all I have.
And just to follow up on your question, Commissioner Tinder, about the escrow agreement, we have $100,000 in escrow right now. That is, and then developers are supposed to fully fund the deal on Thursday if we have a contract. So if we don't have a signed contract, then there's no obligation for anybody to do anything, and we would refund that $100,000 to them.
And what is the total deal?
I think it's 2.55 million, I think, or 2.45 plus the $100,000 for the city.
And I'm sorry, you need to, I'm sure you're aware that money is going to Tyndall. That's not coming to the city. All we are is a pass-through.
But if the deal closes, it will become taxable revenue for the city, so.
Yeah, and I might remind the commission that the big prize here is really the ad valorem real estate basis jump that you get. And we did a short calculation before coming here this morning. Currently, the city millage rate is 39 mils, or 3.9. And we think, and have already put this into our developers agreement with the city, that the project should go into the CRA. And it all, by comparison, it would increase the city's taxable income by almost 64% by picking up the county share. And just to give you a way of some quick math, for example, if you have 500,000 square feet of project that goes up on this property, 500,000 square feet at $120 a square foot cost would equal a $60 million ad valorem tax base. And that translates into about $500,000 of annual income off of taxes for the city share and if you pick up the CRA county share. And that's the real prize here, because it's the gift that keeps on giving. It happens year in, year out. And I might remind the commission that we're paying for all the infrastructure. We're not asking the city to pay for any infrastructure. We're going to be paying for that ourselves. So we're very excited about getting a lot of the verticality. And so, for example, just by way of the two projects I just mentioned, the first one's right at around 90,000 square feet. The second one is right at if you assume 200 units at 1,000 square feet, that's a 200,000 square foot. So you're looking at 300,000 square feet right within the first 6 months to less than a year. Those people will be coming in for permits, and one of them is a totally third party to us. The other one we will probably have an affiliation with. We've got investors that want to put up the 64 units of condo projects, and I can't express enough that we're finally. I'm itching to get going, because this is finally this is what I'm good at is getting product put in the ground.
Okay. So I would try to bring us back to a discussion. If anyone from the audience, again, if there's anybody from the public who has an additional question, sure. And Mr. Walker, the same. I'm kind of moving away from the 3 minutes if we have questions. I know this is a very important decision for the city, and I don't want us to rush it. So please go ahead.
Did I just understand that y'all don't have a signed contract on what y'all talking about? Well, all these incentives that they give y'all on the deal that they want to change today? Y'all have a signed contract for them saying that they will do all that for you?
Yes.
No, that's what he said he didn't.
No, we don't have a signed contract.
You don't have a signed contract, and you...
No, we don't have a signed contract, period.
He told you what all he'd do for it, y'all didn't have him sign it?
No, we don't have a signed contract.
You got a developer here saying that the money's in the bank. The money is in the guy's pocket that he's talking about that's not here today. There's a big problem getting it out of his pocket, get it in that escrow that's non-refundable. That's when you have a deal. Right now, you've not got a deal. They're going to build this, hotels, they're going to do all that. They have not come up with nothing in 6 or 7 years. And we don't have a contract, what we're talking about today, and they want to jump past that and let y'all give it back. They've never give you that. They've never signed saying they were going to do that.
The contract was approved at the resolution last week but it has not been signed by the mayor or Blue Water.
They haven't signed it yet, though. Is that right?
That's correct.
And y'all let them come to this meeting today without it unsigned?
We have to have it. We have to have a decision
by the...
I
understand, but I understand business.
We have to have a discussion here openly, and
I understand, but
I can't sign without a commission.
Get them to sign it. Here, they here. Get them to sign it. But
I didn't hear your last.
Okay, hold up. In on something.
Excuse me. I didn't hear your last question. The last comment you made. I couldn't hear it. I'm sorry.
My last comment?
Go ahead.
I was just saying that they have not signed the contract that we're talking about. They want to take something out that they put in without signing. They didn't really give you anything but push the cards over here. They've been pushing these cards like this for a long time, saying they're going to build this and build that, build it and they'll come. It doesn't necessarily work that way. These people say they're going to close on that land. They need to close on the land. I don't even know. They don't sign up for anything that, what y'all talking about, they've not even signed. My lawyer embarrassed me pretty bad, but I don't know how y'all can let this happen. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, I have a different understanding of how the contract was executed, and so...
It's not executed.
It's not executed.
Exactly.
We do not have a signed agreement.
Are there other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
To Commissioner Tinder. I referenced the 950 acres, and I referenced it being almost the same as this. Ms. Tinder mentioned the fact they can do anything they want. If they sell a piece of property, like they did in 950 acres, it's a new owner. They've changed the development plans on 950 acres 15 times. They can do that. Our planning group here takes good consideration of a new owner, new piece of property, and I'll put a skyscraper up. They'll approve it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Rob, I just wanted City Attorney, I just wanted to clarify, on August the 3rd, is my understanding, the agreement said that they would fund $100,000, not the full amount, and then closing is between the 6th and the 8th.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
It should be a full,
I
we
thought
have
I read that
100,000
somewhere.
right now, and it's full funding on the 3rd.
Okay. I thought that I had read, because again, I know that this is the agreement that we had originally approved that has not been signed, but I thought for sure that I saw in there that they fund $100,000 on the 3rd and then full funding at closing. So I can't find it now.
My understanding was full funding at escrow on the 3rd.
Okay.
And then this morning with the Air Force discussion, the 7th was the closing date, but because of some ESA documents that the Air Force, it's going to take them a couple more days than they thought. And so all the documents from all of the parties, including FSU, Blue Water, Marina Island, all those will be coming to our attorney, Rob Jackson. And then as he collects those, when those last documents from the Air Force comes in, then the property would effectually be closed. That was what we discussed this morning, but are there other questions or comments?
I think the only other comment that I would make is and I can wait till after we vote on the resolution for the windfall if you'd like, but.
No, please, let's just put it all out there.
I was just going to say, I go back to my original statement. Since we don't have a signed contract, we have an agreement that we originally agreed to. They obviously are in a position where they don't agree to that agreement. They want to change the windfall. Full intentions on closing, but I still think that the city should be prepared in some way. If that's another special meeting, I'm certainly open to that. Our next meeting won't be till the 8th, as I understand it. So I would like for us to be in a position to act quickly if we do not close, if the resolution doesn't pass today, which would change the verbiage of the current contract. So that's...
Do you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I can, yes, ma'am. I'll
Okay.
wait till we close out the current motion on the table.
And let me just clarify, the actions that the commission took last week to approve resolution 2017-07688 that approved the contract and the deal with the Air Force, that is still going to be the authority granted to the mayor and the city manager to execute those documents. There's no intention to, if there is an intention to revoke that authority, then we all need to do that today. Otherwise, that is current authority.
If I may?
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
if we take no action today, they can execute the original contract
That's correct.
with no changes.
Correct.
That's what I would like to see happen. And if that doesn't happen, then I would like to see us move forward with the city trying to purchase the property.
I just think while we're assembled here today, we need a plan B.
So what I'm hearing is that, I haven't heard a motion to this effect yet, but what I'm hearing is that this commission would lean in the direction of making a motion to pass the original resolution that we agreed to at the last commission meeting. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, there's no, you don't need to take any action for that.
So we've already approved it?
You've already approved
So if we
it,
take
it's
no
done.
action at all
Right.
today, then what we did at the last commission meeting stands?
It's still valid.
And then it falls into the lap, if I may use that expression, of the developers to go forward by putting the money in escrow and to close on the assigned closing date.
Right, sign the contract and then do what the contract requires.
So what I would propose that whoever makes this motion that we let stand whatever we had before, or I think someone needs to make a motion that if this money is not, I can't make the motion, obviously.
happy
So if this money is not placed in escrow on Thursday as planned to move forward with the purchase, that we need to go ahead and set a special meeting so that we can take some kind of action or no action at all, but it needs to be decided upon whether this would go back to the Air Force or whatever. So
Yeah.
can someone propose
yeah.
something to that?
Yes, ma'am. It's just my understanding we still have the resolution on the table, so we can.
No.
Yeah,
Well,
we
there's not been a-
we had a set. We had a. Didn't we have? I apologize. I
We
thought
had, excuse me, we had a resolution on the table, but we did not have a motion to take action on it. We only had a motion to discuss
need
it,
to
so we've done that.
Okay. All right. I
So we
thought
don't need to
needed.
withdraw it since we've had
No,
discussion.
we've had discussion. I mean, if someone wants to make a motion to pass or fail or this motion, the resolution, that would probably be appropriate. If there isn't a motion, then
So at this time, why don't I ask if there is a motion to pass resolution number 2017-07-689? And there is no motion, so therefore the resolution fails. Is there any further discussion concerning action?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to make a motion that on August the 3rd, if the current developers do not close and fund the escrow, that the commission calls a special commission meeting to discuss options, to include notifying Tyndall that we intend to have the special meeting with the opportunity to close.
A second.
And there's been a motion that if for any reason the funding for this project is not placed in escrow on Thursday, August the 3rd, that at that point the mayor would call a special commission meeting and we would notify all parties involved of our intentions to look at several options. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second it? Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion from the audience? At this time, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Commissioner Tender.
Yes.
Commissioner Russell.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. So that motion is approved. Okay, we have one other item to cover in today's meeting, and that is to set the proposed millage rates for purposes of submission of certificates of taxable value to the property appraiser's office pursuant to the TRIM Act. Is there a motion?
Mayor, yes, ma'am. I'd like to make a motion that since we have a new city manager, if we could do we have enough time? I guess it's more of a question than a motion, but do we have enough time to allow him to take an opportunity to look at maybe a rollback? Currently, we're 3.9. I don't know if he's had a chance to look at that or not, but I don't want to pass up the opportunity.
Go ahead. Commissioner Friend, we have suggested the 3.9, which is the same. That's just setting it preliminary. Between now and the budget time, we can roll that back.
Okay.
We can set it different.
In that understanding that information, I'll make a motion that we keep the millage at 3.9 proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second that we keep the proposed millage rate at 3.9 with the understanding that there can be more discussion later. Any comments from the public? Did you have your hand up, Mr. Walker? Sure.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I didn't get the back end of that conversation. You asked for a rollback? Okay, that was negated. Okay. I'll get back to the original. I took a look at the fuel depot on the website that you had put on the agenda, and on the bottom of it was the millage rate. And I kind of got confused because it looked like it was connected to the fuel depot. And after I read it for the fourth time, plus the contract for the third time, I've noticed that this is separate. A while ago, an astute gentleman stood up here and he said something about the half-cent sales tax. And what it dealt with was if we didn't approve the half-cent sales tax, that there would be a rate increase in our taxes. Good common sense. But I see here we are increasing our taxes. And it says there 0.74. You're increasing taxes. You taxed us with a half-cent sales tax. You taxed the whole United States with that. You increased that tax, and that was supposed to be for preventative against raising the taxes, the millage rate. You've got a millage rate increase here, you've got a half-cent sales tax increase here. That's a raise in taxes. Panama City took a look at this too and said, well, seeing that we did a raise in the half-cent sales tax, we're going to reduce the millage rate. That sounded sensible. Why aren't we doing the same thing like Commissioner Friend was thinking? Where's the help to the citizens here? It seems that you're just taxing us more and more.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I think what Commissioner Friend asked in his question was, is there an opportunity as we bring this up? This is not the final meeting. This is just preliminary. We're trying to hit the deadlines set by the state. And Commissioner Friend did ask in his question, is there an opportunity for rollback, which there is. And so that will come up. But I appreciate your comments. Are there any?
Mayor, if I make a comment?
Yes.
For the record, Mr. Walker, the citizens of the county impose that half-cent infrastructure tax. No governing authority has done that. You know, it was brought up as a referendum, and the citizens of Bay County voted for that tax. So we have not raised anybody's tax. If we keep our millage rate the exact same, we have not raised anybody's taxes. The citizens chose to make that tax. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Okay, Mr. Walker, you're out of order at this point. I'm sorry. Anybody else? Actually, since Commissioner Russell spoke directly to you, I would give you the opportunity to respond. I'm sorry, that would be incorrect on my part. Go ahead.
The rollback mandated by the state was to 3.8, 713. It took you many years to get down to that average. You tried. If your rollback is supposed to be 3.8 and your proposed rate is 3.9, that's an increase. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
And
thank you.
And yes, Bay County did vote that in. You guys pushed it too.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Anyone else? Anybody else? Okay, at this point, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. And so at this point, it'll be a proposed rate with opportunity for further discussion as we move towards a rollback. Before public commentary, I was remiss at the beginning of the meeting. We have former Mayor Walter Kelly with us. I want to welcome you and thank you for coming today. We're all happy to see you. And at this time, item number 5 is public commentary on any point that you would like to discuss. Anyone? Okay, at this point then, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute.
Excuse me, it's not quite adjourned yet.
If I have one thing, I just want to
Okay, go ahead.
add real quick, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
The city manager's contract was temporary. You all extended it for 2 weeks last meeting.
Yes.
Just in talking with the city manager, he would like that, which the 2 weeks would have been the 17th of August. He would like that extended to the 23rd on a temporary basis, simply to catch the second commission meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the proposal from the city manager who's currently working on a temporary contract, that we extend his temporary contract until the commission meeting?
The extension would be to the 23rd, which would cover the 22nd meeting.
And then we would be able to renegotiate that contract on?
Either the 8th or the 22nd. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on either one. So we have that option. Is there a motion to accept?
So move.
Second.
Yes, there's a motion and a second. Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Okay, so that is passed, that we will consider that for a little longer time, so we have time for negotiations. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.